The FA published the original laws of football in 1863. However, did you know that there were no refs for the first 11 years of matches played? Did you also know you can get sent off in the warm-up before the games even started? Unless you're a ref, probably not. And in this video, we're going to go over a load of other rules you probably didn't know. First up, have you ever wondered what would happen if you stuffed the ball under your shirt and ran the length of the pitch, like this? Well, that comes under the impeding play rule, so I wouldn't advise you to try it unless you want to get booked. Rule number 2, you cannot score an own goal from a free kick or throw-in. As long as nobody else touches the ball on the way to the goal, it doesn't stand. Instead, a corner gets awarded to the opposition because the ball has crossed the line. So as random and embarrassing as it would be, the goal wouldn't count.
Souza with the throw-in. Sealer isn't even looking at the ball!
Now, the next rule addresses paid endorsements. Players are not allowed to display any form of marketing during games. As Nicholas Bentner found out when he celebrated scoring for Denmark by showing off his Paddy Power sponsored underwear, which landed him a hefty €100,000 fine from UEFA. Now, the next rule on the list is one you've probably never tried, are thinking of trying, or have even seen. Midway through the first half in a match in Africa, a player attempted to perform witchcraft on the pitch in the attempt to help his team win the game. Surprisingly, performing these type of acts is not permitted on the football pitch, so needless to say, he got booked. So if you were thinking of performing witchcraft in your Sunday league game on the weekend, you've been warned.
Now, the apparent story behind this is just bizarre. A player believed that the opposing goalie had placed some sort of voodoo powder into his goal, which was preventing his team from scoring. He stole it from the goal and their team scored less than 10 minutes later. Coincidence or not, either way, since then witchcraft was clamped down on in African matches as it was becoming quite a common theme, with cases of players performing an act during a match and scoring straight after. Clubs will now lose 3 points if any players are caught doing anything along these lines.
Now, showboating can be a controversial topic, and opinions can often be biased depending on what country you're in. For example, in somewhere like Brazil, it's often commended. However, in somewhere like England, it's often frowned upon. However, the rules state you can use skills for an attacking or defending purpose, so something like this would be allowed. But if you're using skills with no purpose, for example, standing in the corner just juggling the ball or twirling about, a foul must be given.
However, this is where it gets controversial because the rules also state that there are 2 types of offences in football: violations against a sport's rules and violations against the sport itself. A player must be cautioned if they act in a manner which shows a lack of respect for the game. So they almost contradict each other because there are times when a ref has been seen giving a foul against a player for showboating even when it's been used for a purpose. For example, when Neymar was given a yellow card for attempting a rainbow flick, but he was doing it with the purpose of beating a defender. The ref said this was unsporting behaviour, but growing up playing street football in Brazil, needless to say, Neymar was not too happy about this, and he displayed his disagreement on social media after the game. This rule could also be seen when Neymar got sent off for celebrating by wearing a mask of his face, as the ref said he was turning the game of football into a circus and showing a lack of respect for the game. But once again, this is at the ref's discretion, so the outcome might be different with a ref from Brazil compared to perhaps an old school ref from somewhere like Russia who likes to keep things simple. Rule number 5. Now, this is another one I didn't know before researching it for this video. It's common knowledge that you can perform a back pass to the goalie with your head. However, if you flick the ball up to pass it back, this is against the rules. It turns out the rule makers don't like it when you try to get around their laws. An indirect free kick and instant yellow card must be given, as Ivan Perisic found out during a match for Inter Milan. The rulebook states that this is unsporting conduct and no trickery can be used to get around the back pass law.
So up next, we all know how annoying it is when you're losing in the last minute and the other team start doing this in the corner. The other week I uploaded this video onto my TikTok as a solution, asking whether it will be allowed or not, but I received quite a few comments saying you probably get penalised for it. After some research, I found that this will come under the Dangerous Play Act, so there's the answer to my own question.
On to rule number 7. Players must not take their shirts off until they've left the pitch. So if you're coming off a sub and you take your shirt off too early, this is a bookable offence. It might take a very fussy ref to even spot this in the first place and then proceed to penalise you for it as well, but it's another one in the rulebook. Number 8. Players can turn down the call of being subbed off. You may not know this, but being subbed off is actually an option. A ref cannot sanction a player for refusing to come off, and the game must continue.
He's determined to stay on there. He's determined. It's a war of wills at the moment between the goalkeeper and his manager, but you know who the boss is.
A famous example of this was seen with Chelsea goalkeeper Kepa in the Carabao Cup final. It might not be against the rules, but he certainly received a lot of backlash from it for his lack of respect for the manager's decision.
So I also wanted to include a section on weird rules you never would have thought were once in use. So here's some weird rules from back in the day that got eliminated from the game. So for example, nowadays everyone knows you're awarded 3 points for a win. However, did you know up until 1981 a win only earned you 2 points in England? And it was only until 1995 when a win gave you 3 points in all leagues around the world.
This meant teams were played more defensive for a 1-point draw, because back then 1 point meant a lot more than it does now. Teams would also be seen making an agreement to draw the match towards the end. This was one of the main reasons for the 3-point system to be brought in. Another one that's not in use today: whoever got to the ball gets the throw-in. This meant you could kick the ball out, and if you got to it before an opposing player, it's your throw-in. This rule was abandoned because it caused too much havoc on the side of the pitch, with teams often fighting for the ball. Next up is an old rule that addressed the equipment that used to be played with. It's quite a simple one: no crossbars allowed.
So back then, hitting the crossbar like this wasn't possible.
Up next, now we all know that the goalkeeper is probably the most protected position in the whole game. Any touch on them nowadays and it's a foul. However, there was once a time when you were allowed to knock the ball out of their hands, as long as they had just one hand on the ball. This was eliminated eventually, as too many goalies were getting injured as a result.
Oh, and Crosby's pitched the... Oh, has he given the goal? He has! My word! Gary Crosby! And Dibble is livid!
So another one from back in the day: teams must swap sides every time a goal is scored.
Another rule that was eliminated: there was once a time when players could catch the ball in their hands from a pass, drop it to their feet and continue running. This is seen somewhat nowadays in Gaelic football, but of course you wouldn't see this in traditional football. This is also similar to another rule where you were only allowed to pass the ball backwards. Passing the ball forwards was not allowed. If this rule was still in use today, I would definitely struggle with no through balls on FIFA. And finally, the last rule of the video: there were no subs allowed until 1965. This meant if you started the match, you had to see it out. So back then, players had to be unbelievably fit to play every week, and if a player got injured, the team had to carry on with 10 men. So that's the last one for today. Some pretty random ones in there. Let me know if you knew any of these existed. Either way, hopefully you found this video interesting. If you enjoyed, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.